Hello! Today we're going to be talking about planes of symmetry. This is important, especially in the medical field, because when you're looking at x-rays or you're looking at MRIs, the doctor has to know from what view is he looking at the particular picture. So I've got a whole bunch of words over here for you, very important vocab words, and a little picture over here to kind of explain it as well. So let's get started. I kind of grouped them into three main chunks, that, and there. And then there's this little guy on the side that we don't usually use very often, so I just kind of have him there. All right, the first thing, if you take a look at the little guy, girl, I think it's a guy, over here, you can see that there are three different colored planes. And you can see that this blue one cuts him right in half, but divides him to a front and a back. And so if you were to take a tomato and slice it in half, well, that would divide the tomato into a front and a back. And so that's kind of what's going on here. So we call that a coronal plane. A coronal is also referred to as a frontal plane because of the fact that it divides you into a front and a back. So you need to know that the two are the same, but just know that we can use them interchangeably. Okay, then we've got this pink one over here, which is called a sagittal plane. And this is if I were to, a ninja or something were to chop you straight down the middle, they divide you into a left and a right half. Now remember, this person is looking at you, so which side's left, which side's right? So this is his right hand over here. This is his left hand over there. And so every time you look at pictures or drawings of anatomical features, you always got to remember it's flip-flop. So maybe back in biology, you remember learning about the heart, that the right side was on your left and the left side was on your right. So just remember, it's always flip-flopped. So sagittal plane will divide you into a left and a right half. Now, if that plane divides you straight down the middle, like that, we're going to call you mid-sagittal because it's right along your midline, which is right smack in the middle. Now, if I decide to go ahead and chop you still into left and right halves, but not even left and right halves, so maybe I were to take my little ninja sword and go, son, chop right down there, I still have a left and a right half, but it's not along the midline. So now I have what's called a parasagittal. Para just kind of means to the side of, or not on the middle. So sagittal just means left and right. That's kind of the generic term. Mid-sagittal means directly in the middle, like this. And then we have parasagittal, which means off the side. Okay, so then I should have spent more time on this one, sorry. So we have frontal or coronal, which is this one here. And so let me switch colors on you. And so that's if I were to karate chop you right down the middle this way and cut you into a front and a half. Same coronal, same as frontal. And then the next one, let me clear this up real quick. And the next one is called a transverse. And most MRIs, most x-rays, a lot of them that you'll see are in the transverse because it just shows you a lot more detail. Transverse is, and this is the green plane here, basically if I were to karate chop you right in half and into a top and a bottom half. So transverse, it transverses you, divides you into a top and a bottom half. We also call it a horizontal because, as you can see, it horizontally cuts you, or a cross-section. If you've ever gone to the Body Worlds exhibit, they have cross-sectional man, which is where they took slices. They went chop, 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 and basically like a stack of poker chips kind of laid out for you. And so you could see what the neck looked like, what the chest cavity looked like, what the abdominal cavity looked like, what the pelvic cavity looked like, what a cross-section of your leg looks like. And so they stacked them up, spread them apart so you can see in between each one, but that's a cross-section. So all three of these are exactly the same. Now, like parasagittal meant off from the center, now this is mid-sagittal if I were to cut you right smack in the middle, but this is not parasagittal. They just still call it a cross-section of whatever body part we're looking at. So cross-section of the head, cross-section of the leg, cross-section of the ankle, whatever it is. So they don't really go into horizontal, para cross-section, para transverse. And then the last cut that we have is called an oblique. And if you know where your obliques are, they're the ones here, the muscles that kind of go sideways. So an oblique cut is one that is cut on an angle. So say you got in some crazy freak accident and your foot got amputated at an angle like that, we would call that an oblique amputation. Same thing with your arm. If it were to get cut off at an angle, oblique. So if I wanted to take a look at, say, your knee, and I kind of wanted to see all the structures inside. A lot of you sports guys have problems with your ACL, your PCL, or your MCL, and they want to look at all three at once. Well, easiest thing to do is to take a cross section, but on the oblique. So a regular cross section would be horizontally, but an oblique cross section is just kind of twist it, and now we can see all sorts of neat structures in the knee as well. Okay, so those are the terms that you're going to need to know. So when I say you're looking at a cross section of blah blah blah, you're looking at a frontal section of this, now you'll kind of know how we're looking. So what I thought I would do is to give you some images of actual real MRIs taken randomly off the internet. So no, these are not anybody I know. And I want you to see if you can figure out which is which. So here's a guy. I'm assuming it's a guy, or a rather manly looking chick. And what we see here is we can see the brain. We can see that's a ventricle, that's a hole in the brain. It's supposed to be there, it's okay. We got the pons, we got the medulla oblongata, one of my favorite words to say. You can see the nose. Notice there's no eyes here. So where on your face would you not see your eyes if you were to chop? Well, probably right smack in the middle. So what section, is it sagittal, coronal, or transverse is your first step, and then is it mid or is it para? So if you take a look at this guy, and we see that it's right smack in the middle, so what do you think it is? It's sagittal or mid-sagittal if you wanted to be more specific. Now, if you notice that they've cut them right down the middle, but now I can see an eyeball. If you look, let me see, let me get my pin right here. There's an eyeball. There's the lens inside the eyeball. Let's give them some little scary looking things. If you look inside, now we're seeing sections of the brain that aren't right in the middle. So see, we don't see the ventricle right here. Also, we don't see the spinal cord or the medulla or the pons, which we know is right smack in the middle. So the fact that I'm seeing the eyeball right there is telling me that it's not in the middle, but off to the side. And so what do we call it? When it is off to the side, we call it parasagittal. Very good. Okay, now the next one we're looking at someone's head. How do I know that? Well, first of all, I notice there's some eyeballs there, right there and there. Here's the nasal cavity. There's part of the nose, looks like the upper bridge right here. Here's sections of the brain. Ooh, I don't think this person lived too long. Those look like tumors in the brain. That's not good. Okay, and so you can kind of tell that it looks like someone maybe chopped them like right here and then went, and you're looking down inside. So first of all, which one of these three? Is it sagittal, coronal, or transverse? What do you think? Let's see. Transverse, right. Or horizontal or cross-section. Any of those would be fine. So I went ahead and found another picture, not of a brain, because all the other ones are of heads. So I found one of, what do you think all this is? What do you think we're looking at right here, rather than a slab of beef? Well, there is one of your, there's one of your vertebrae. There's the spine. That's hollow, so it's probably one of your intestines. That looks like it could be kidneys right there. These are your ribs. So I'm looking at what kind of section? Sagittal, coronal, or transverse? Transverse, good. So I, just like on this green one, I sliced them, and that's what we're looking at. Now the hardest part on these is, am I looking top down or am I looking bottom up? Usually most doctors will do top down. So you can imagine that if I were to take this guy and continue drawing him, his head would be coming out towards you, out of the screen, and his feet would be behind the screen. Okay, and the next one, we've got this kind. And you're thinking, what the heck is that? Well, once again, I got eyeballs. I've got some cavities. Oh, you know when you get a really bad sinus infection and right here hurts? Yeah, you got two big holes back there. Now, so here's your little nasal bones right in here. Oh, what's that? That's a big old tongue. Here's some muscles and some, your masseter, your chewing muscle. You got a brain split in half right up there. It's got a big old crack in it. Okay, so how would I be able to look at someone in that view? Would I chop them like this, or like this? So, what do you think? What do we call that? We would call that coronal, correct. So if I slice them into front and half, this is a coronal section. So you can imagine Raiders of the Lost Ark, you know, when the guy's face melts off at the end, and, you know, for a while you can actually see part of the stuff inside of his face. Well, that's because, you know, that's almost like a coronal section. Now this one down here, we can see, let me get back to my pen, we can see all sorts of neat stuff. Here's his spine. It's curved, not the right way. Well, your spine has a curve, but that's if I'm looking that way. You know, there's your back, your lower back, your sacrum. Okay, but I got an arm here and an arm here, so that means the person's looking straight at me. If I'm looking straight at you, should your spine be curved that way? No, probably not. So you've got scoliosis or lordosis, which is an unnatural curvature of the spine. Now the guy's facing you, so remember this is the right side, this is the left side, and so you don't need to know the organs, I just like pointing them out. That's a liver right there. There's a stomach, it's got something in it. Right there, there's the lungs. You're going, where's his heart? Well, they took the slice that didn't involve the heart, so it's a little bit further back behind. And then we got some intestines, and there's your ilium, which are your hip bones right there. And so, what kind of section is this? Sagittal, coronal, or transverse? It is, ta-da, coronal. Good. Now, coronal can also be mid-coronal, which is a direct slice right in the middle, or you can be paracoronal. If you slice a little closer to the front or a little closer to the back, you've got paracoronal. And then the last one we've got, I couldn't find any really good MRI images of this one, so I just went with some others. So, oh, this poor little guy, I don't know why they needed a chunk of his leg like that, but as you can see, it's on an angle, and we can see there's a tibia, there's a fibula, and there's all your muscles, got some blood vessels hiding in there, all this fat right around there, it's good stuff. And then here's an actual MRI of someone's knee, and so they're looking that way. There's a kneecap up there, there's your femur, there's your tibia. And so you can see these little lines right here are telling the radiologist, or the guy who reads the MRIs, they're telling them that in other pictures that go along with this, they're showing them all the different, where they took the different slices from. So if I were to look at this picture right here, well, I would see the femur. If I were to look at this picture right here, I wouldn't see the femur, but I would definitely see a section of the tibia. So this is really, really important for radiologists and doctors to understand where exactly the slice was taken so they can interpret the radiograph much better. So did you figure out what kind it is? It is oblique. Very good. All right, so tomorrow what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you guys some sort of, I don't know, either like a fruit or a vegetable, and I'm going to give you a knife. I know that's really bad to do. And so I'm going to give you this little vegetable, and I'm going to make you cut it in different forms. I'm going to say, okay, give me a transverse section of your tomato. And so you're going to have to cut it the right way. Give me a cross section, chop. Give me an oblique, chop. So give me a mid-sagittal, chop. And you're going to have to cut your fruit or vegetable in the appropriate term or in the appropriate section in order to get credit. Okay? So if you're cooking dinner tonight, help out mom, grab a knife, grab something, practice. Okay? All right, we shall see you guys tomorrow.